The Committee on Homeland Security Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection will come to order. The Chair welcomes those joining us today in the audience. I want to remind everyone that is here as a guest of the committee that we do not allow anyone to disrupt the proceedings in any manner with signs or placards. The subcommittee is meeting today to receive testimony regarding the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards Program, more commonly referred to as CFATS. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Before we begin, though, I would like to say I know that I speak for everyone on this subcommittee in extending our heartfelt condolences to the victims of yesterday's shooting in Florida. A school should never be a place where students or teachers fear for or lose their lives. As we learn more, I certainly hope that no other family will be forced to endure this type of senseless tragedy. The CFATS program began in 2007 in order to keep dangerous chemicals out of the hands of terrorists seeking to do our nation harm. Since then, the program has grown and strengthened through the tireless work put in by the men and women at the DHS and through the relentless effort of industry to keep their facilities secure. The daily management and security of high-risk chemicals is not an issue that the government can solve on its own. Working with industry stakeholders in this area is an integral part and aspect of our nation's continuing counterterrorism efforts. By identifying high-risk facilities and ensuring that they have appropriate security measures in place, the risks associated with these chemicals can be heavily mitigated. Especially after recent tragedies, greater collaboration between government and facility owner-operators also can provide confidence and peace of mind to the American public. It's important to point out that the CFATS is a broad program that covers facilities that use, manufacture, store, or handle specific quantities of chemicals that DHS has identified as being extremely dangerous. As shown by the various industries that our witnesses come from, facilities under this program touch all aspects of our economy, such as energy and healthcare, mining, agriculture, electronics, and plastics. The need for Congress and DHS to get this program right is both a national security and economic imperative. The CFATS program has used risk-based performance standards such as perimeter security, access control, and cybersecurity to examine and evaluate a facility's security posture. While it is up to individual owner-operators of a CFATS-covered facility to choose what programs best ensure the security of stored chemicals, a high-risk facility ultimately must implement stringent standards as set forth in CFATS. As DHS previously stated before this subcommittee, the significant reduction in the number of chemical facilities that represent the highest risk is an important success in the CFATS program and is attributable both to the design of the program and the work of CFATS personnel and industry at thousands of chemical facilities. Through engagement and collaboration with industry stakeholders over the past few years, this committee is hopeful that the CFATS program can continue to protect chemicals from those who mean to do us harm. I'd like to thank our panel for taking time today to testify. Your thoughts and opinions are very important as we oversee the Department of Homeland Security in meeting its duties under the Chemical Facilities Anti-Terrorism Standards Program. As stakeholders, you offer a unique and integral insight into the interworkings of this program, which is set to expire, by the way, at the end of this year. I look forward to a robust conversation with our distinguished panel today that will support our efforts in overseeing the CFATS program. Before I recognize the ranking member, I ask unanimous consent to insert statements from the National Association of Chemical Distributors and the Institute of Makers of Explosives. Without objection, is so ordered. With that, the Chair now recognizes my friend, the gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Richmond, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. I want to thank the Chairman for having this very important meeting with this subcommittee's oversight of the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards CFATS program. 12 years ago, the Bush administration issued a call to action to address credible terrorist threats to high-risk chemical facilities across the country. At the time, chemical facility security was considered one of the most significant security gaps in the post-9/11 era. And Secretary Chertoff asked Congress to pass a balanced, risk-based security measure for the chemical industry. Within a year, Congress attached language to the DHS appropriations bill giving DHS temporary authority to implement a chemical security program. CFAT survived on annual authorizations through the appropriations process for 8 years, and the lack of certainty and stability stunted the program's growth. Congress finally passed a 4-year authorization bill in 2014 following the tragic explosion at the West Texas chemical facility. Since then, the CFATS program has invested in better tools, better trained personnel, and a better strategic vision for the future. In short, the CFATS program has matured. Today, the program has buy-in of industry and bipartisan support on the Hill. And although I think we can do more to advance the objectives of the program, it's clear that CFATS has made us safer. Authorization for CFATS expires in December of this year. If Congress does not act, CFATS will be relegated once again to annual authorizations through the appropriations process, or worse. Last year, this subcommittee began its reauthorization efforts with a series of candid, closed-door roundtables. I am encouraged that today we will begin hearing these stakeholder perspectives on the record. As the subcommittee's reauthorization efforts continue, I hope we will have an opportunity to hear from the department. In the meantime, I look forward to hearing from the witnesses here today on how we can translate the lessons learned from the first 12 years of the CFATS program into proposals to make it more efficient, more effective, and more impactful. Toward that end, there are 3 topics I would like to hear more about. First, as of today, high-risk targets with significant chemical holdings, like public water systems, are exempt from CFATS. Every head of DHS, from Secretary Chertoff to Secretary Johnson, has said those exemptions should be eliminated. And I will be interested to learn if the witnesses here today agree with our former DHS secretaries. Second, as I have mentioned, CFATS has matured into a more stable program than what it was just 4 years ago. I'll be interested to know how the stakeholders here today would like to see the program evolve. Finally, I would like to know what the federal government can do to help chemical facilities adapt their security operations in response to evolving threats and technologies like drones. Like many of my colleagues on this panel, my district is home to a number of chemical facilities. They play a crucial role in the local economy, but with that comes risk. The CFATS program helps address that risk and makes communities like mine safer without being overly burdensome. I look forward to continuing this subcommittee's reauthorization efforts, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank the gentleman. Other members of the committee may have opening statements. If they do, those may be submitted for the record. As I mentioned, we're fortunate to have a very distinguished panel of witnesses before us today on this important topic. Mr. Chet Thompson is the president of the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers. Mr. Thompson previously served as Deputy General Counsel at the Environmental Protection Agency, so I look forward to hearing how the CFATS program and EPA regulations interact with each other from you. Thanks for being here. Ms. Kirsten Meskill is the Director of Corporate Security for BASF Corporation, but is here testifying on behalf of the American Chemistry Council. Ms. Meskill comes to us from BASF, the largest chemical producer in the world. She was named one of the most influential people in security in 2016 by Security Magazine. Welcome. We're glad to have you. Mr. Peter Mutchler is Environment, Health, and Safety Director of CHS, Inc. Mr. Mutchler also serves as the Secretary of the Board of Directors for the Responsible Ag Program. Glad to have you here, Mr. Mutchler. And finally, Mr. Paul Oram is the Chemical Safety Advocate for the Coalition to Prevent Chemical Disasters. Thank you for agreeing to be with us today, sir. I now ask each of the witnesses to stand. Raise your right hand so I can swear you in to testify. Do each of you swear or affirm the testimony that you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witnesses have answered in the affirmative. You all may be seated. Thank you. Witnesses' full written statements will appear in the record. The chair now recognizes Mr. Thompson for his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Ratcliffe, Ranking Member Richmond, members of the subcommittee. Again, it's a real honor and privilege to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Chet Thompson. I am the president of the American Fuel and Petrochemical Manufacturers. AFPM represents 97% of the nation's refining and petrochemical manufacturing capacity in this country. That includes 118 refineries, 248 petrochemical facilities. We're located in 33 states across the country. We support more than 3 million jobs and bring about $600 billion to the U.S. economy each year. Our members make the gasoline, the jet fuel, the petrochemicals that power our economy, power the world's economy, and make modern life possible. America's refining and petrochemical companies play an important role in ensuring and maintaining the security of our energy and petrochemical infrastructure. As I sit here today, I can tell you without hesitation that nothing is more important to our members than the safety and security of their workforce, their employees, their contractors, and certainly their surrounding communities. This safety and their safety requires that we protect our facilities and critical infrastructure against potential security threats. Accomplishing this is the shared responsibility of the government and our member companies. We have a great partnership with DHS at the moment, and we believe they have done a great job implementing the CFATS program. For all these reasons, we fully support the reauthorization of the CFATS program and urge Congress not to let this important program lapse. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to use my limiting time today. I just want to highlight a few points of my written testimony. First, the overall structure of the CFATS program is sound and is not in need of a major statutory overhaul. Again, our members support the mission and the goal of CFATS and believe that the United States of America is far safer as a result of this program. We strongly endorse the program's performance-based approach that allows facilities to develop security plans that fit their specific risk profiles as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach that other agencies often adopt. Second, Congress's CFATS reauthorization in 2014 dramatically improved the program. Some of the larger improvements included the revisions to DHS's risk assessment tools, their tiering methodology, the establishment of the expedited approval program for Tier 3 and Tier 4 facilities, and certainly streamlining the personnel vetting for Tier 1 and 2 facilities. Your 4-year reauthorization was also critically important. It provided us, industry, with the certainty needed to make the long-term investments that we have made, and it certainly provided DHS the support and resources they need to improve the program. We support another multi-year reauthorization to continue this positive momentum. So in addition to reauthorizing the program for another multi-year period, we offer the following recommendations as you move forward with your deliberations. First, we urge Congress to continue protecting the confidentiality of CFATS site security information. DHS and covered facilities should not be required to publicly disclose or provide site security information to persons who lack the requisite security clearances. CFATS at its core is a security program. Mandating the public disclosure of sensitive information such as security system designs, control system schematics, worst-case scenario discharge data, COI records, and other technical response information could threaten the safety of not only our facilities, but the security of the nation's critical energy infrastructure. Second, we also urge Congress to continue to subject CFATS program, particularly Appendix A, to the formal notice and comment rulemaking process under the Administrative Procedures Act. Revisions to Appendix A would have broad implications for the chemical facilities, including whether they're subject to the program and how they get tiered. As such, proposed changes to Appendix A should be transparent and it should be open to public review and public comment. Finally, we caution against adding new and extraneous provisions that will slow or diminish the progress DHS has made in implementing the CFATS program. More specifically, Congress should not mandate or authorize DHS to require facilities to undergo inherently safer technology review as part of the security planning process. and nor should it mandate additional stakeholder involvement in the security plan development process. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here. I look forward to working with this committee and with DHS in the months ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Ms. Meskill, you're recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify today. I am Kirsten Meskill. I'm Director of Corporate Security at BASF Corporation. BASF Corporation is headquartered in Florham Park, New Jersey. We have over 100 facilities throughout the North America in 28 states and more than 17,000 employees in North America. I'm the immediate past chairman of the Chemical Sector Coordinating Council and the current chair of the Security Committee for the ACC, American Chemistry Council. I am here today on behalf of the ACC to voice general support for a long-term reauthorization of the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards, CFATS. ACC member companies manufacture products that are critical to the everyday health and well-being of the nation and essential for developing a more sustainable and competitive economy. Because of our critical role in the nation's economy and our responsibility to our employees and to the communities, security is a top priority for my company and for the ACC. In 2001, ACC created a stringent mandatory security program called the Responsible Care Security Code. Since its creation, ACC members have invested more than $17 billion under the security code to further enhance site security, transportation security, and cyber security at our facilities. The security code has become a gold standard for the industry and serves as a model for regulatory programs. Today, chemical manufacturing is experiencing a renaissance thanks to the increase in domestic shale gas production. ACC has identified more than 300 new capital projects worth more than $185 billion, which will add thousands of jobs and generate billions of dollars of economic activity. Ensuring that clear and workable federal programs, such as CFATS, remain in place is an important part of establishing a stable regulatory environment needed to foster these new investments. Over the past 4 years, the Department of Homeland Security has significantly improved its administration of the CFATS program, which has had a positive effect on enhancing security at chemical facilities. Several factors have led to the recent success of the CFATS program, including better site inspections and more streamlined authorization process. Most importantly, DHS leadership has demonstrated a commitment to working with members of the regulated community to improve the implementation of the program. While DHS has made considerable strides to improve the CFATS program, there are additional areas for improvement. First, improving transparency in DHS risk determinations. This comes by being more transparent with facility operators about risk determinations and tiering levels and ways to potentially reduce the risk or even eliminate it. Since the operator is responsible and has authority and resources for making security risk management decisions for the facility, it is important that they have access to all the information about risk tiering. Second, reconsider the value of TSDB screening at low-risk facilities. Over the past year, DHS has been implementing risk-based performance standards 12 at 200 high-risk facilities at tiers 1 and 2. This requires facility operators to collect sensitive personal information from thousands of employees and contractors for DHS to vet against terrorist screening database. DHS is now planning to extend that program to an additional 37 low-risk facilities at tiers 3 and 4. This will expand vetting to thousands of more employees and contractors. ACC and its members are concerned that such an expansion is unnecessary and will put personal information at risk. It's unclear what benefit is associated with the additional vetting given the cost. While we support vetting at high risk, tier and 1-2 facilities, we hope DHS can reconsider this requirement at lower tier levels 3 and 4. And finally, third, establish a CFATS public-private partnership. DHS should leverage CFATS in industry stewardship programs, such as ACC Responsible Care Program, with the goal of further enhancing the safety and security of hazardous chemicals. By doing so, DHS would be able to recognize responsible operators that go beyond regulatory compliance and incentivize them to continue development of chemical security programs that enhance security beyond the universe of CFATs. I would like to close by saying that CFATs has helped make our industry and our communities more secure. It's a program that will grow stronger by adopting some additional improvements and by the continued engagement of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I'm looking forward to answering any questions you might have.
Thank you, Ms. Maskell. Chair now recognizes Mr. Mutchler for 5 minutes for his opening statement. Yeah, I think the mic, the button there.
Sorry. Good morning, Chairman Radcliffe and Ranking Member Richmond, members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Pete Mutchler, and in addition to my position as the Director of Environment and Safety for CHS and my position on the Board of Directors for Responsible Ag, I'm also here representing the Fertilizer Institute and the Agricultural Retailers Association. CHS is a leading global agribusiness owned by farmers, ranchers, and cooperatives across the United States. CHS supplies farmers with what they need to produce and market their products. We are committed to helping our farmer owners succeed. CHS is a member of the Fertilizer Institute, which is the national trade association representing the fertilizer industry. TFI represents companies engaged in all aspects of the fertilizer supply chain. Commercial fertilizers account for 50% of the current crop yields that we see today. CHS is also a member of the Agricultural Retailers Association, and ARA represents the interest of agricultural retailers. Products and services agricultural retailers provide are critical to the success of our nation's farmers. We are grateful for your efforts to ensure the passage of H.R. 4007, which provided the Department of Homeland Security and the industry with much-needed certainty for the CFATS program. With the current authorization expiring in December of 2018, we express our support for a multi-year reauthorization that continues to provide the industry with certainty needed to make long-term investments and enables the department to efficiently run the program. We also believe that there's a need for reauthorization in the future to allow congressional oversight and review of the program. Approximately 1/3 of the 6,500 agriculture facilities are regulated under the CFAT program in this country. TFI estimates that the agriculture sector accounts for about half of all CFATs registered facilities. CHS has 390 of these facilities registered under CFATs, so we have a great deal of experience with this program. We are pleased with the department's efforts to improve the program and to enhance stakeholder engagement. We did need to expend additional resources to comply with the program, but we've seen a real return on that investment. Today, DHS and the industry are focused on the common goal of ensuring that the products we handle are used appropriately and safely. Working with DHS in the CFATS program, CHS now has a better idea of the security risk at our facilities. Our security risks are prioritized now, so we can focus our efforts on the highest risk facilities first. Moreover, CFATS has allowed us to build stronger relationships with our neighbors and communities, which is incredibly important to the cooperative system. It is important that any reauthorization does not permit the disclosure of sensitive site security information to anyone that does not have a critical need to know. In addition, we are strong supporters of a robust public engagement and believe that any changes to the CFATS program, including Appendix A, should be done through a formal notice and comment rulemaking process. I am also here to represent a relatively new program to our industry, Responsible Ag. Responsible Ag is a voluntary industry stewardship program that launched in 2015 to help agribusinesses comply with federal environment, safety, and security rules, including the CFATS program. At the core of the program is a compliant assessment process and a robust suite of resources designed to assist retailers in their compliance efforts. Responsible Ag is designed to help protect employees, first responders, and the public. Currently, CHS has 200 facilities that participate in the program and over 100 Responsible Ag certified facilities. Overall, in the industry, 2,600 agriculture retail facilities have signed up to be a part of Responsible Ag. 1,900 of them have been assessed, and nearly 1,000 have been certified. Over 1/3 of the agriculture retail facilities in the country are responsible ag participants. We continue to encourage more facilities to participate in the program, but we're very pleased with the progress we've made to date. As a part of the reauthorization of the CFATS program, I respectfully ask the members of this subcommittee to consider how responsible ag and other stewardship programs can complement and enhance the limited resources of the CFATS program. For now, I simply ask that you be willing to work with us to potentially find a way to recognize these stewardship programs in the reauthorization. Finally, as members of this committee work to reauthorize the CFATS program, I want to stress that any lapse in the program would be a serious concern to us. It would be highly disruptive to both the industry and the regulated community. Thank you very much for the opportunity to share the views of CHS, TFI, and ARA.
Thank you, Mr. Mutchler. Chair now recognizes Mr. Oram for 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Paul Oram, and I thank you for this opportunity to address the effectiveness of the Chemical Facility Anti-Terrorism Standards Program. The dangers of chemicals and terrorists are well known. The question today is whether CFAT solutions are sufficiently protective and efficient and resourceful. Congress should reauthorize CFATs for a limited term, but Congress should also recognize the significant risks of simple reauthorization. While CFATS has improved fence line security to some degree, strategies to protect rather than reduce chemical targets are inevitably fallible. Better strategies are available. The program should generate solutions, not just control problems. It should use all available options, improve public confidence by respecting community concerns, better optimize solutions, and more effectively use available resources such as employee expertise. Even small changes could make the current program much more effective. Here are 5 general areas and 10 practical recommendations to build on the current program. First, use all available options, not just management and control strategies. Current CFAT standards focus on risk-based management and control while neglecting prevention. As a result, the chemical industry spends billions protecting chemical targets. This is not only a high-risk strategy in terms of terrorism, but also wasteful in an economic sense. Modernizing facilities in ways that remove chemical targets can reduce the need for such expenditures. CFATs can better align production and security by first seeking to avoid the need for security measures and then addressing residual vulnerabilities. Specifically, DHS should compare target production practices that companies are already using, help other facilities evaluate these practices, and involve qualified private sector solutions developers in the process. Second, continue to exercise oversight, especially, though, of the ability of CFATs to realistically ensure protection. The U.S. Government Accountability Office has produced useful reports about the program. However, GAO reports to date have evaluated CFAT's program implementation rather than the adequacy of the standards to realistically ensure protection. Congress should ask GAO to investigate whether CFAT standards actually protect life, property, and security against known and evolving threats. Third, use all available resources, especially make better use of employee input. Facility employees are often the most vulnerable in a chemical release, but also the most knowledgeable about problems and remedies. There are existing employee input requirements in CFATs, but more systematic and substantial employee input will improve security planning. Fourth, to improve public confidence, respect community concerns. The lack of public information under CFATs admittedly makes it difficult for DHS to address public concerns. While site security plans are understandably protected information, chemical hazards are often at the same time well known. Secrecy is at once not a real option and not responsive to communities. When evident problems are not addressed, public confidence wanes. The program should respect the public's fundamental interests in disaster preparedness and knowledge of solutions that can reduce well-known hazards. Fifth, support other programs that improve chemical security. EPA's risk management planning requirements are also important to chemical security because the RMP program engages civil society in prevention and preparedness in ways that CFATS does not. We're very concerned with the administration's 20-month delay of modest but important amendments to the RMP program. We're concerned that the delay endangers police, fire, and other emergency responders, impedes local disaster planning, and delays preparations for safer technology assessments that could help reduce terrorist targets. Congress should also be aware of the need for credible independent evaluation of new developments in federally funded toxic gas science, and should assert its interest in assuring the integrity of federal research. I'd be pleased to answer any questions or otherwise follow up about how these recommendations might be achieved.
Thank you, Mr. Orm. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. I want to ask a question about expedited approval program, but before I do, very quickly, if I can get each of you to answer this as briefly as possible. We've heard a lot about facilities that are either newly tiered or that have changed tiers, and so I want, as quickly as possible again, whether you feel that the CFATS program right now is correctly considering variables like consequences and threats and vulnerabilities when we're assessing the risk, and I guess more specifically, has this re-tiering initiative methodology from your perspective been successful? I'll just go across the board. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you for the question. Certainly our members believe that since the reauthorization in 2014, the re-tiering process has been improved, and folks believe that risks are better being assessed, and a number of our facilities have been re-tiered. So we're pleased with the direction.
Great. Ms. Meskel?
I agree with that. ACC, many of ACC's members are also pleased. We've seen a general over the industry reduction in the number of higher risk facilities. However, going back to the point that I made in my opening statement, there's really lack of transparency. So as industry, we don't quite know how these risk tierings were applied to the general sites. And so it's difficult for me to comment on whether or not it's actually addressed the real hazards and risks out there without really having full transparency to how these conclusions were made.
Thank you. Mr. Mutchler?
Our experience on the re-tiering has been very positive, actually, and the engagement between our facilities and the DHS has been positive. I will agree, we don't always understand why, but they have been very willing to open up a dialogue and have answer our questions as to why we're moving around to the point that they can. So it's been very positive for us.
Okay. Mr. Orm?
There's not much public information, as others have pointed out, for evaluating this. For that reason, I've suggested that GAO should be reviewing the sufficiency of the tiering and of the overall protectiveness of the C8 of the program.
Okay. So you mentioned GAO. The GAO also reported that in 2017, that very few facilities have participated in DHS's expedited approval program, which, as you all know, is intended to reduce the burden and expedite the processing of security plans for Tier 3 and Tier 4 facilities. So I really want to find out why you think that participation in the expedited approval program has been so limited, and if you have thoughts on the implementation by DHS that what we can do to enhance participation, I'd like to hear that. Again, I'll just go across the board.
Well, quickly, I'll say that we certainly believe through this re-tiering process, and as more of our facilities get re-tiered and move potentially to that 3 and 4 category, you're going to see a greater use of the expedited approval process.
Okay.
I agree with that as well. As new sites and companies, particularly small and medium, come into the CFATS regulatory area, I think we will see more expedited approval process. For those companies like mine and for other member companies of ACC that have been with CFATS from the very beginning, to go back into the expedited approval process is really backtracking, and so it doesn't make a lot of sense for us.
Thank you.
And from the agriculture retailers' position, the expedited approval process has actually worked very well for us, and I can see that continuing on. We have actually had no problem once we've gone into the tier side of the program.
I have no strong bias about the expedited approval process, other than that it should be substantial as the rest of the process. Our overall concern is just the sufficiency of what facilities look at when they do their evaluations and their site security plans, rather than that process.
Okay. My time's about to expire. Mr. Mutchler, I've got want to give you a quick opportunity. You mentioned the Responsible Ag Program as being a voluntary stewardship program that's been successful in your industry. I'm wondering, are the requirements under that program, do you think they're more stringent on security issues than the CFATS program is? And why would facilities opt to participate in that Responsible Ag Program if they're regulated by CFATS?
I don't think it's more or less. I think the regulations are there, and compliance is pretty standard across the board. Why would they choose to participate in that? It's because you know, with under CFATS or any regulatory program, our operations only get evaluated every so often. The resources just are not there to get onto every site. We can use Responsible Ag to cover, you know, like I said, 1,900 of them have been assessed, and that just assures them that they're complying with the regulations, and gives the communities a comfort level that we're doing the right thing.
Terrific, thank you. My time's expired. The chair now recognizes the ranking member, Mr. Richmond.
Let me kind of pick up where the chairman left off. Since CFATS was established, I guess over a decade ago, we had about 70,000 facilities covered. Now it's down to 3,500 today in terms of high risk, and that has been reduction largely in response to facilities voluntarily reducing or removing dangerous chemicals, and thereby hopefully eliminating a potential terrorist target. Are there ways that you think we can leverage that data, or looking at those 3,500 facilities that have reduced their risk, and maybe trying to figure out if there are any metrics or similarities across the line without compromising security or the proprietary interest of those companies? We'll start with you, Mr. Thompson.
Well, I certainly would support, you know, more information, and my members would welcome the information that other facilities have used in order to exit the program. We see no downside to that whatsoever.
Well, the question is, do you think you could do it without giving up any proprietary information of those companies?
Well, again, it depends. Without knowing precisely the information we're talking about, I won't be able to, couldn't answer that, of course. Certainly, there would have to be a balance between not releasing proprietary information or security-related information. But to the extent that DHS could synthesize this into something that could be released publicly, I think that would help. You know, but competing against this trend is this notion of, you know, driving at this. You know, as I said in my testimony, I don't believe this should force inherently safer technology reviews. That's not appropriately a part of this program, but certainly other aspects of what facilities have done, we would welcome it.
Mr. Orm.
Yes, there are ways to make better use of that information without just compromising proprietary information. First, I think DHS should be producing lessons learned analyses, which can be done simply by aggregating and anonymizing information rather than including facility-specific information about those lessons learned. Second, remember that trade secret factors have been used for many years to successfully delimit public information where information is already available or readily discoverable. It basically is not secret, can't be kept secret. For example, under the Emergency Planning and Community Right to Know Act, those criteria have been used very successfully. And third, I think that the need to know information sharing under Section 2103 of CFAT should be specifically broadened such that private sector developers of target reduction technologies can have access to that information for purposes of technology transfer and diffusion and technical assistance. Otherwise, that section is all focused on emergency response. That's part of the failure, I think, of imagination of the program as a whole, that it's not focused more on the prevention side.
Speaking of prevention, what should we be doing to address the statutory exemptions for certain types of high-risk facilities like water treatment systems and nuclear power plants?
Drinking water and wastewater facilities just should definitely be included in the program. Half of large drinking water facilities already don't use bulk chlorine gas, and there's a trend that in that direction of the others. 2/3 of wastewater facilities do not use bulk chlorine gas. The bleach manufacturers that serve them are in increasing number, although still relatively small, no longer bringing in rail cars of 90 tons of chlorine gas. That whole system and the supply chain of transportation that serves it could very effectively be brought under the program. It's just a matter of Congress doing it.
And I see my time is running out, and I just hope at some point we have a conversation about whether you all think we have adequately or the conversation about drones in these facilities. My district is the largest petrochemical footprint in the country, and I worry about drones and security and the neighborhood security every day. So I hope that comes up in questions or later testimony. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Donovan, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and just my friend from Louisiana just hit on something I was going to speak on too. Since the reauthorization 2014, our enemies' methods of threatening our systems have changed. Drones being one of them. Are there any things that this committee could do to help in your efforts to protect the facilities that we're talking about here with these new rising threats, whether it be in the field of physical security or cybersecurity? And I'd ask the entire panel. I'd be very interested in hearing your expertise.
Well, let me certainly echo what the ranking member and what you just said about drones. Drones is certainly a high threat and concern of our industry as well. We have been working closely with the FAA on drone issues. We encourage DHS to work with FAA on drone issues, to coordinate between the two agencies, who should lead and how to protect the airspace above our facilities. A very important issue. We also believe that DHS should implement a voluntary program for our facilities to report potential drone attacks, so there can be more of a collection of data to help us going forward.
I agree. We're all very worried about drones, particularly the weaponization and arming of drones, and those drones entering airspace over our chemical facilities. Currently, in many states, some states have passed regulation putting that area restricted so that drones cannot cross it, but that's not uniform across all our states. So we are looking for that. Drone technology is great. It's advancing quickly, and it is really complementing our security and safety programs. It's fantastic. The ability to use drones to do inspections of smokestacks and other structures without putting other scaffolding in place is really great. And as we watch security advancements, we can even implement drone technology to do perimeter checks and things like that. So it's really great, but we are paralyzed because we are very concerned about weaponized drones coming over our facilities, and we don't have a way to defend ourselves against that right now.
Okay, from the agricultural side of the industry, we agree with everything I've heard here, but I really believe highly in the public-private partnerships to address any new risk that is coming our way. And I think DHS has done a very good job working with us, in particular looking at the risk to the agricultural sector. We're remote facilities, we're scattered all over the countryside, and we have some unusual risk, and they've been very open to work with us on assessing those risks. And I think what the committee can do is encourage these public-private relationships using some of the stewardship programs to look at best management practices in addition to just regulatory requirements.
Here again, I think you have a prime issue to put to the Government Accountability Office for an in-depth study on whether current existing CFAT standards are in fact sufficient to address evolving risks of concern.
And quickly, could each of you just speak 15, 20 seconds on cyber security and what you feel could be an assistance to you in protecting your facilities from a cyber attack?
Sure. Access to intelligence. So it's a continuing theme that we've heard over and over again. We need information. Clearly, we need declassified or classified information. We need to share that information. We need to understand where those risks are, where they're evolving, where they're happening in the industry, so that we can then design our security programs to address those risks.
And I certainly wasn't avoiding the question. I was trying to be a gentleman. Like you say, certainly this ranks high with the drone issue, cybersecurity as well, and AFPM and our members have been actively involved with this. There's a risk-based performance, I believe number 8, that deals with this issue, so our security plans address cyber. We've also been working closely with NIST and their framework for this issue, and so we're actively involved in certainly the government and sharing information, finding ways voluntarily to share amongst ourselves would be the way the government can help.
And again, I get back to that public-private partnership deal, and on cybersecurity, we're currently at the table with DHS talking about precision agriculture and what are the vulnerabilities of those systems, and I think those dialogues are incredibly healthy for us as the industry to protect the systems, and it's doing a good job on opening the eyes of the regulators too as to what's actually out there right now. So.
I thank you all, and I also invite each of you to share with us anything that comes up after this hearing and how we could help you protect those facilities. Thank you for your testimony. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the time that I don't have remaining.
I thank the gentleman. The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Florida, Chief Demings.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for joining us here today. The CFATS Act of 2014 includes protection for workers, including a requirement that facilities, to the extent practical, consult with at least one knowledgeable employee or labor union representative in security planning and vulnerability assessments. Mr. Oram, can you elaborate on the benefit of having employees on the ground contribute to security plans and serve as force multipliers for monitoring compliance?
Yes, employees tend to get hurt first and worst by chemical releases. They also observe problems every day and are knowledgeable about remedies. Basically, the more involved employees are, the more fixes to the problems. There's a number of things that CFATS could do more substantially, including employees routinely in inspections, for example. Making sure that companies certify that they've consulted with employees, requiring an input plan in which employee recommendations are documented, as well as the responses to those recommendations. DHS could also do a sort of see something, say something educational campaign for employees. It's possible also that transferring the whistleblower protection provisions to OSHA, which administers such programs for a couple dozen agencies, could help make them more effective.
You know, as a former police chief, I frequently ask the men and the women on the ground who were doing the job for their opinions on how we could do it better and how we could keep them safer. For the other panelists, what are the circumstances that would make it impractical for a facility to ask an employee for help with a security or site security plan? And we'll start with you, Mr. Thompson.
Well, it's not as much whether it's impractical. I think what we're always striving to do is find the appropriate balance. We're dealing with highly sensitive security information, and so we need to balance that and the need to limit that information from getting out where more publicly where it could pose greater risks, with, you know, balance that against which certainly the expertise that some of our workforce could bring to bear. And so our facilities, you know, are always looking for that balance. And if there are folks within the workforce that can add to the development of vulnerability assessments or security plans, certainly we bring that expertise to bear. But again, it's a balance, and there's not a one-size-fits-all answer here. This isn't about what Mr. Orem said about identifying problems and releases. This is about security. And so we need to take a different
Isn't
balance.
identifying problems a part of a security plan?
Absolutely, but some of the releases that were being referenced, there are other programs like EPA's Risk Management Planning Program and EPCA. There's lots of other programs. I think it's important for us when we talk about this to remember we're talking about CFATs and security and the highly sensitive information that we're dealing with. And again, that's what makes us want to. This isn't an issue of just stiff-arming our employees. This again is the issue of finding the appropriate balance to deal with highly sensitive information.
So I agree with everything Mr. Thompson said, but in addition, across the industry, plans are developed at a site level. It's that site director who is ultimately accountable and responsible for safety and security at his facility. And so there is immediately on-site employee engagement and involvement in development of those plans. Of course, you need some technical skill as well. And at my company, and I know at other member companies at ACC, you have individuals like me and teams like me that advise and give that technical skill. But ultimately, it's the people on the ground that are coming up with those plans because, like Mr. Orem said, they're the first ones who know the risks, and they're really in the best position to develop those plans.
Yes.
I kind of agree with everything I've heard. That one thing is, you know, I truly believe that there is not a adequate safety and security plan that doesn't include the input from all employees at certain phases of the project. And we have had tremendous luck with DHS on this issue, and particularly with their outreach program for non-regulated facilities. They will sit down with all our employees, and we will go through a vulnerability assessment. And the only thing where it starts crossing the line is when you have this roadmap that shows you exactly how to damage the facility. That is the area that we need to protect. But we take input on all levels of our safety programs and security from not only the employees but the communities we work with. And, you know, we have law enforcement involved in that same process. They need to be.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm out of time. I'll yield back.
Thank the gentlelady. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Bacon.
Thank you all for being here, and this is a new subject matter for me, so I'm trying to learn as fast as I can. Could you give me an example, any of you, of a Tier 1 facility versus a Tier 2? What kind of things are we looking at that are different? I don't know if I understand it.
I'll start with that. Okay. It's not completely known by the regulated party, but you know the amount of work that they do analyzing the vulnerabilities and what possibly could be in there is multiple factors. Not only what's stored on the site, where it is located, what is the general makeup of the geography and the population in the area. I've always been surprised to see which ones are tiered at what levels. So.
That's interesting that it's hard for you to ascertain, and you're having to live it. Any other thoughts on that question?
No, I agree with that. You know, and I made reference to this earlier. During the reauthorization process, there were sites that fell out of tiering, which did surprise us. And so oftentimes it is a bit of a surprise to us, industry, and because we don't have sufficient transparency or knowledge as to what exactly is being looked at.
Mr. Thompson, you talk about flexibility and how important it is. Can you describe what does that really mean, and why is that so important to you for CFATs?
Well, again, it's important, as I said in my testimony, about this being performance standards and not one size fits all. And every facility is different. Every workforce is different. I don't disagree with any of what the panelists said. I think we were consistent about getting input from our workforce. What we are opposed to are mandates that tell us exactly how to go about it. And so, that's the main point here. We need the flexibility to develop the best plan that we can to provide the maximum security. In some situations, that will involve lots of workforce involvement. In other situations, maybe less so. So we just need the flexibility to develop the best plan we can, working with DHS.
Ms. Meskel, on the DHS CFATS officials, are they helpful to you? I mean, are they good advisors? Are they a little bit ambiguous, or
No.
helping you get to solution?
No, they've been extremely helpful, and we do work extremely closely with them, both at the chem sector level, but also at the ACC level, and then at a site level. They have been very gracious in responding to questions, very responsive, and overall, yes. I think they try very hard to understand and relate to the challenges that industry has, the complications that those challenges present sometimes to make us comply with the regulation.
To the remaining three, if you found them helpful as well?
I'd like to lead off with that one. I found them extremely helpful.
Good.
In our industry, we have a lot of people that are not security experts. They're selling fertilizer, they're giving farmers advice, they're trying to, market grain, and that's their main job. And every time we've interacted with the DHS personnel, they've been very professional, very informative. They have really helped ease the anxiety of our locations. And in my overall opinion, it's been a tremendous success because of the people that are involved.
Thank you. That's good to hear. Anybody else?
Well, I certainly won't miss the opportunity to echo our thanks to DHS. They do a terrific job. This is a hard program they've done. We can't say enough.
I'd add that average community member has never met a DHS CFATS employee, I presume. My impression is, though, however, and I keep harping on this, there's a kind of a mindset failure that is too much focused on conventional security and not enough on the reduction of risk profiles as a potential security measure. More should be done to use that aspect.
Okay, thank you very much. I would just wish all of our agencies had that kind of feedback for helping out their customers. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman, and I thank all the witnesses for your testimony today, and I thank the members for all their questions. I can relate to you all that the combination of the national shooting tragedy and a change in the House calendar prevented some members of the subcommittee from attending our hearing today. Some of those members will likely have additional questions for you as witnesses, and we'll ask you to respond to those in writing. Pursuant to Committee Rule 7D, the hearing record will remain open for a period of 10 days. Without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.